Isn't it weird that Lancer's motif has been put in more jovial contexts increasingly removed from him? I mean, Lancer's theme is this "I'm the bad guy" swing tune, and is used and referenced a lot in Chapter 1, in true Toby Fox fashion. Thrash Machine sticks out though, because it's the least similar to tracks such as Versus Lancer or Chaos King. Of course, the main melody is Lancer's theme in a major key. Lancer? More like Prancer. But the second half takes that B section from the original and tweaks it to fit more with its corporate onboarding theme. In Chapter 2, Acid Tunnel of Love takes it a step further by shifting Lancer's motif to fit into a waltz. The second half of it also deviates from Thrash Machine's B section melodically. This wouldn't have bothered me if not for the new additions to the Lancer's motif Rogues Gallery in Chapters 3 and 4, one of which plays when he digs a dug, and the other plays during Kris's concerto, Music for a Lesbian Date. In this concert, Not For Us, Kris plays music we're familiar with, like The Legend and Rules' battle theme and Lancer's theme again? But this one is also not so slightly different. It brings together all of the Lancer tracks we've heard up to this point. We've got the melody from Lancer, of course, the now staple major key introduced in Thrash Machine, Acid Tunnel's bassy ba-da-da-da-dum, and Dig 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 to the Center of the Earth's descending da-da-da, all combined into one piece. What? Wow, that's a cool Easter egg. Said the unsuspecting viewer, moments before the displeased presenter rapidly approached from the horizon. I'm Lande, by the way. I don't think that Kris's piano playing is merely an Easter egg for us heart-shaped objects at home, but that these original themes are diegetic. One, because some of the tracks here are featured in the game diegetically, or in the context of the world, and two, because Toby Fox is extremely intentional with how he implements music. Kris must have learned these tunes from somewhere, and since the festival is like tomorrow, they would probably be more inclined to play music from said festival. I mean, the Lancer piece would fit here perfectly with it being a waltz. Waltzes and foxtrots are the cornerstone of circus and carnival music. But if that's true, what the fuck even is Lancer's theme then? Is this waltz an amalgamation stemming from Lancer's theme in Chapter 1, or is the waltz the original?
Starwalker.
Most importantly, what does it say about Lancer? Darkners seem to have memories relative to their lived experience as objects, and also just as living beings in general. Just look at Sham and Card Kingdom. And the objects they are definitely affect how Lightners see them. Have they encountered someone like Lancer before and have a long history? What does Kris see in him? What is Lancer really? I mean, considering that the first time we see him we hear the melody now associated with our newly knighted bad guy, it might be safe to assume that Lancer is the roaring... Nah. I do love that my favorite 39-second loop got an entire boss to accompany it. Though it's kinda spooky how Black Knife has similar bones to Burn in Despair from Undertale. There's a lot to be said about both the Knight and Black Knife themselves, but I've gotta get this off my chest. No, the melody does not contain the freedom motif. It is referencing the chase. Why do I kind of sound like Mr. Electric? Send him to the principal's office this instant. No, that's like Michael Mao. Whenever I see people talking about the freedom motif in Black Knife, I feel like they forget how leitmotifs work. So I'm gonna demonstrate. So let's use Spirit Justice from Undertale. This track references and calls back to Ruins, and that might not be something listeners catch the first time around because they're in different time signatures, or, you know, some other reason. Ruins is felt in one big swooping beat. And Spear of Justice is felt in two big beats. It's also up-tempo and more intense, so the rhythms naturally change with that. However, the notes remain the same as they're both in the key signature of A flat minor. Now, at the risk of being repetitive, let's get another example or two.
Repetition is the core aspect of music after all.
Let's swing over to the Genocide route, or No Mercy if you're from the United States, to look at Battle Against a True Hero, where the Ruins motif gets some more time in the underground. But in this context, we're completely out of the melody's comfort zone. We're in a different key, a whole different tempo, and we're in 4/4? Where are we? Well, we're at our darkest hour, fighting for monster kind, and the voices of the people we fight for stick out in just 4 notes. The rhythm is slightly different, but because of the interval staying the same, we know it's ruins time. And that idea persists with how Toby Fox uses leitmotif in both games. Not to say that the intervals have to be the exact same, or even rhythms. Hell, I hadn't realized that It's Raining Somewhere Else contained Sans leitmotif because the intervals weren't fucking switched at birth. Okay, identical, that's the word I meant to use. These musical ideas still carry symbolism with them. Heartache being in Asgore showcases Toriel and Asgore's fractured relationship. And in Deltarune, Spamton's Hello Every being in Tenna's feature presentation represents their fractured relationship, proving that the real antagonist at Deltarune is a stable household. The freedom motif is showcased in almost every secret boss to highlight how freedom, or lack thereof, reflects in their character. Except this one, because it's not a secret! Black Knife's A melody being a reference to the freedom motif is kind of a donk because the melodies are structurally different, not just in rhythm but in intervals. That response to the call and response portion of the world revolving goes down, up again, then keeps going down. Meanwhile, the door motif goes down, up, and then does a whole run down into that uncomfortable end. And with the intervals, the world revolving goes a whole step lower than the chase does. These sound too different, and I feel like it's a reach to try and find trickery in Tony's work here. The bigger tell as to what this means in the story is definitely the possible echo of Burn and Despair, which is right in front of our faces. But there are all of the other elements that could be motifs from the future in their own right. Now, I'm not saying that there can't be deception in his melodies. He's named Tricky Tony for a reason. It took me forever to realize that Lantern's melody is just Rude Buster, and that Glowing Snow is just but they still echo their original tracks, whether that be in rhythmic or melodic structure, or just being similar enough to be familiar. I'm looking at you, Chapter 4. I understand seeing all the wacky shit going on in the Deltaverse and chalking it up to the urban legend that is Tricky Tony, but I believe that the trickery is in that honesty, that consistency. What does it mean for the percussion in Black Knife to sound like Burn and Despair? I mean, considering the context of that song in Undertale and who the knight might be and is associated with
Noel!
How could you not say Noel?
Noel's cover for WD Gaster.
We don't exactly know, guys.
It's Noel!
It's Noel, bro.
Well, if everyone is so insistent, that means tracks like Raise Up Your Bat become more interesting as a result. Well, the Andy Cunningham video explains how the Lost Girl motif and the lyrics to Raise Up Your Bat intertwine with Dess's maybe, probably, definitely active involvement in the story. But what the 9th grade ninja didn't talk about is the parallel between the chorus and the lyrics to Don't Forget.
Your heart as my mark, which will shine you the way.
Don't Forget speaks about the listener being plunged into darkness, with their soul possessing a shining light that, okay, we're not sure what it does, but the speaker assures us that they're with us in that darkness. Meanwhile, in Raise Up Your Bat, the listeners beckoned into that probable same darkness. The heart, also known as the soul, is remarked as an arc, kind of like a beacon, a light in the dark. But it's all the more obvious when we're told, because I'm with you in the dark, coupled with the fact that Des is already associated with rock and roll aesthetics and disappearing. I'm not sure what to make of all these connections, though. I'm not much of a theorist, even if I have wandered into the woods of theory and am within earshot of a distant burgeoning truck that's getting closer. Hearing Kris play Last Prophecy and Kris Piano Last Prophecy and Kris Piano Prophecy on side by side made it click for me that we never really see the legend and Don't Forget in the same room together. I wonder if they're fighting. Well, we hear Don't Forget's motif a whole lot on account of it being like the main theme of the game. It's freaking everywhere. However, the Legends motif is almost exclusive to Dark World. These two don't mingle. That is, until we get to the church, and oh my god, they're in the same room. Old Wooden Rafters deifies the legend motif, and the hymn has the choir singing those familiar words. You know, shadows cutting deep, beauty of the soul, and we not forget. And their convening does not stop there!
For you see!
To reiterate, we know that both the legend and Don't Forget exist in Deltarune diegetically. The legend not only because Rouse sings it in chapter 1, but also because if you play it on the big piano, Susie makes a joke about serenading Rouse. And don't forget, because of what I just said about the choir singing it at the beginning of the chapter. What bugs me though is that the legend is seen as the last prophecy in that OG file, but I can't decide on if that means if it was the previous prophecy or if this is the final prophecy. And in that case, don't forget would be the older prophecy, right? Or maybe it's a revision, a new international Episcopalian version, the reboot or something. What's more interesting is that both prophecy motifs share space in the main melody of Dark Sanctuary. The melody starts with the intro to the legend, develops in its own way, but ends with the promise in our... And remember that piano Easter egg from later in the chapter? If you play Dark Sanctuary's arpeggiating melody, you know, the one that's the center of Ever Higher and like the rest of chapter 4, on the piano, Susie comments on how that's the melody Rouse keeps humming. If I were a betting boy, I'd say that both prophecies are one and the same. I mean, Rousey's been talking about this prophecy since chapter 1. It's not like it got newly revised with this Dark World, but more so newly relevant. Speaking of that motif, that Sanctuary motif, yeah, that one. With all this prophecy talk, it's hard to pin down how this even fits. Even though it's not directly from the legend or Don't Forget, I'm still inclined to believe that it's another piece to those prophecies. And whether it's from this one or the last one, well, that's hard to say.
I have no fucking idea.
My theory was that it's something the Fun Gang came up with, considering this chapter is the first we hear of it, but that can't be because Rouse already knows the whole damn song already. However, I do like the idea of them repurposing the melody and making it their own, considering how it morphs and changes throughout the whole chapter. The main reason for this headcanon was Kris specifically using a keyboard and not a piano when they do the perform act. It reminds me of how in Mother 3, all of the characters are associated with different instruments when they hit people. Or monsters, they hit monsters too. Speaking of chapter 4 melodies and such, I always felt like Second Sanctuary sounded like a sort of interpolation of Dark Sanctuary, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it until I watched Cadence Hira's video on Third Sanctuary. Go watch that, by the way. But I did notice that while all of our prophecy melodies pop up in Second Sanctuary, the only ones that are featured in the Third Sanctuary are Don't Forget and The Legend. But The Legend is so unfamiliar. And Don't Forget only appears near the end. I just think that fits with the idea that this song is Susie's interpretation of the prophecy and how she shakes it up and how she views the world, man. Okay, see you guys in 2 years or whatever.